everybody. Welcome to the last panel of the day today. We are so excited to be here. I hope you are really having an amazing time with your GISH assignments. I can't wait to see what you make in gingerbread and how you keep Castiel fanfic clean. Good luck. We have an amazing panel today. We have three incredible guests, and we're going to just explore the world of illustration. It is an area I have particular adoration, veneration for because I cannot draw at all. I think it is, I'm semi-competent in many areas. This is not it. So I kind of look at anybody who can pick up a pencil as a magician. And so we have three incredible magicians with us today. If you have any questions, please put them in the YouTube chat, and some of them will get transferred to me, and I'll ignore most of them. All right. Anyway, let's meet our panelists. First, I would like you guys to meet Megan Padalecki. Megan, could you introduce yourself to the audience and kind of tell them a little bit about your work?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Padalecki, and I am a defector from architecture into children's book writing and a defector from children's book writing into architecture. I do a bit of both. So I come at stories from kind of a unique angle as an architect, but at the end of the day, I'm just writing complex stories featuring animals because I can't draw people. That's a little confession. I try to, but I'm more comfortable in the world of animals, and I think they tell children's stories very beautifully and very approachably. So, I have 3 under my belt living in San Francisco, always thinking about the next really heavy issue I want to integrate into a cute book about animals.
I love this. I want to talk about all of that. And I'm so encouraged. And I think you, hopefully people at home would be encouraged that you are professional, you have published, and yet you're saying that there's you can't draw people. I'm sure you can, but you excel and that's wonderful. It's like every artist is different. Embrace that. I can't wait.
We all have our soft spots, shall we call them?
Yeah. And a human has a soft spot on their head until they're 2. I kept not touching it on my baby's body. You know when they tell you don't touch their soft spot? All I did for the first 6 months of her life was look at her touch. And I was like, don't touch. Anyway, welcome to our second panelist, Sean Rubin. Sean, could you introduce yourself?
And hi, I'm Sean Rubin. I mostly do children's books and graphic novels and comic books sometimes.
I love it. And can you talk a little bit, because I know everybody, it's the internet. They're all talking about your background. Can you talk a little bit about that LED thing in the background? Because I asked you about
that's this is it's a live map of the New York City subway system, actually, all 5 boroughs. And in case you want to know where the 1 is right now, if you zoom in on that, you'd find out. And so long as we're doing a little bit of a confessional here, I really can't draw cars. So there you have it.
Okay, this is fascinating. This is totally fascinating because like I said, anybody could draw as a magician. The fact that both of you have just admitted that artists have things they don't think they could draw is incredible to me. I'm sure that you're all wrong, but at the same time, it's fascinating. Let's talk to Loryn. Loryn Brantz, what can you not draw? And then also introduce yourself, please.
Yes. Hi. I'm pretty sure I can't draw anything. So it's like a real struggle being an artist for a living. It's pretty painful. I don't know why I do that to myself. But yeah, cars, I can't draw cars either. And TVs and people are really hard. I can't draw like waste. So all my people are like jelly beans. It's just like I don't know what happens, but I'm a big fan of just drawing what you can and having the concept and that sort of thing be the more important part than necessarily drawing. But about me, I've done a lot of different things. I do children's books. I made Feminist Baby, the series. I write and direct and created The Good Advice Cupcake online, the web series. I have a web comic online, Jelly Bean Comics. I have my latest book, Had to Be You. I used to build props and puppets for Sesame Street. And I'm also a creative director at BuzzFeed. So I've done like a lot of things you probably don't realize that you've seen that I've done. Like, remember those really viral quizzes that were like, can you see the color blue? Like
that was you?
Yeah.
What? The unspoken heroes of the internet. Wow.
Yeah. Wasting your time. One quiz at a time.
You're teasing and you have a couple Emmys in the background. I can't help but just draw attention to that because that's a mic drop right there.
Thank you. Yeah.
So as someone who admires people who could draw so much, I would just love to hear from you guys. When did you know you could draw? When did you know that that's what you kind of wanted to do for the rest of your life? Did it start when you were tiny? Was it something that you graduated in? Megan, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I think there are two parts to that question because growing up in Texas, we went to a Baptist church every Sunday and we sat in the second row and there were these little pink donation envelopes. And every Sunday I was just drawing on those, from the age of 3 or 4. It was problematic, I think. But it was at that point, just a time to kind of escape the moment. And it has continued to be that. And then I got into architecture, and about 6 years into that, I realized that every time I would travel internationally, I would pick up copies of children's books as my one souvenir. And I realized there's something about the children's book that I'm so drawn to. And I know I love drawing. I want to figure out a way to combine those both. Because again, it's a cathartic process and it's an escape. And so having cultivated the ability to draw now over practically my entire lifetime, I feel like it is a special power in a way, whether it's, well done or not. It feels special to me because it is I hate to use the word escape so many times, but that is what it feels like. It's a reprieve from the day to draw.
Yeah, it's also a way, you're interpreting the world and also escaping where you are, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Sean, when did you know that you could draw? Is it something that your parents saw in you that you could cultivate, or was it an escape like Megan?
Yeah, a little bit of both, I think. I often tell people, I've been drawing since I was little. I think one of the main differences is I just didn't stop. And for me also as an only child, growing up in New York City, couldn't always run around outside to play, much as I might have wanted to. And so kind of sitting in my room and drawing was a way to kind of do imaginative play by myself. Whatever was in my head, kind of getting it out on paper, I kind of look at it in, instant gratification. So that was a huge part of it. And then later on in school, it was something that I did, when I was bored. And my teachers let me get away with it, I think. Otherwise, I was probably a little bit disruptive in class. I think a lot of artists actually have that story in common. But at any rate, yeah. So I just kept doing it. Kept doing it through college, and just always wanted to do some sort of illustration work, and was finally in a position where I could just do this, which has been really fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's a hard transition to make because a lot of artists, it's a very small number of people who can actually support themselves with their art.
Yeah.
Loryn, you have worked in so many different fields. What was your initial impetus for when you got out of school or just deciding what to do with your life? Was that something that you just crystal clear, I am a visual artist, I'm going to do all these visual things with my life? Or was that something else that kind of pushed you into that?
Yeah, I was just born. Always wanted to do this before I could walk or talk. I said I can't draw, but I really can't do anything else. So it's like this level drawing and then anything else I could possibly do is way worse. So before I could ever do anything, I was drawing, and my big plan was to be the next Walt Disney, but I went into animation and it wasn't actually what I thought it would be. So, it turned into illustration and this and that, and more the basic ideas that I wanted to, spread joy and love through art and stories. And however I get to do that, I do it, whether it's puppets or drawings or,
So why kids? Do all of you have kids, or do you not have kids? Does anybody here not have a child?
I don't have a child, but I feel like a big one sometimes, maybe all the time.
So what led each of you to be drawn to the venue of children's illustration? Or because I think it's, as a mom, I have a 5-year-old, and I don't remember, as a child, how profoundly layered children's books have to be. You have to be so brief, you have to be so concise, and yet you really have to impart so much and so little. And I never admired it before until I was reading my daughter, 10 books a night or whatever, or the one book for a week 5,000 times. So what drew you to this particular way of interpreting the world?
I'm glad Loryn mentioned the fascination with Disney at a young age, because I was definitely the same. There was this book, I remember this book, it was called The Art of Mickey Mouse, and it was just a compilation of different interpretations of drawing and painting Mickey. But, you know, what is so special to me about children's illustration in particular is that it is a child's first fine art, and it is for them. And so there was something about being a young kid and having a shelf of, 10 to 20 books, and they were all my little museums of art, that someone else took the time to draw for me. And I don't know if there's any other medium that's quite like that. So that's, there's so many different mediums to use in children's illustration. There's so many styles, but at the end of the day, it's something that's very, like you said, Felicia, layered for the child. I love adding little tiny jokes within, illustrations, or something that is repetitive or a motif that adults and children alike can pick up on throughout the course of reading a book over and over and over again, which is the other great thing about kids' books. They're short enough to be read over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's true. I've read many of them. Yeah, I've read many of them 10 million times. The Dinosaurs Digs is the new one, and I'm just like, do we need to read this one again? I guess we do. Sean, what led you to doing? I mean, you did graphic novels as well. What led you to all that? Because you have an interesting background to come to this. Archaeology, I believe.
Yeah, I studied it, did a little digging, not too much, but it was just something that was interesting, and I was trying to get out of school in 4 years. But it's actually, it's stuff that I loved reading about it when I was a kid, and so it was a great thing to study in school. And actually, I'm working on a lot of archaeology related books lately. So it's not like something that's kind of like in the past, pun intended. I don't know. So no, I really like to do things that are kind of more all ages oriented. And so something that I like to say is that I think of my work as being something that children are kind of included in, but doesn't necessarily exclude adults. And it's kind of a challenge. It's an interesting challenge to tell a story that I think like that many ages can kind of get their heads around. And that's really kind of appealing to me. And it's also, I mean, I completely agree with the point of like, it's amazing to be able to make something, to make all this art that kids can then appreciate and have and look at. And I know I have two boys, one is 5, one is 8, and they spend a lot of time looking at books. They tend to gravitate towards comic books, which we encourage around here. But it's these little worlds that they're kind of able to inhabit and think about and ask questions about.
Yeah, Loryn, was it something that you felt like you were getting your voice out there at a young age that kind of enveloped into you doing mostly kids entertainment? But now you're at BuzzFeed, so you're entertaining people who are children on the internet, adults.
Yeah, yeah. I have, you gotta get a day job.
Exactly, but the sense of wonder and whimsy and impulse, like it really is a beautiful thing, and that playfulness that we as adults kind of lose. What draws you to those kind of that kind of entertainment, making that stuff?
I think a lot of things, but I love kids. I think they're great. They're so cheesy. They're so pure, and they like really are the future and all of that. So it's important to me. But I think like when I really started, when I was little, like thinking about it, and I think this is a story a lot of other artists sort of relate to. I remember I was having like a really rough time. Things were great at home, and I was watching cartoons on TV, and I was just like laughing with my brother, having the best time, and like nothing else mattered. And I was like, wow, this is what I want to like do. This is what I want to like give to the world. And the same with books and like all children's media. It's like it's so important for kids. They just like really learn a lot from it and grow in it and everything.
Yeah, no, it really impacts, and it also every single thing they pick up on informs their worldview, because you have these malleable people. They don't know how the world works. If they were born and they said, if we all got together and was like, let's just tell Larry that when they get to be 5, they all get wings, okay? Like they wouldn't know any different. They literally would not know the rules of the world. And so what's so important is the kind of what you expose your kid to does form their basis for reality. And so that's why, I think children's books are probably the most important books we'll ever read, right? How do each of you develop your voice? Because I think that's something beginning artists really struggle with. Like you have this sense like, I need to draw well in order to be an artist. And yet, you see somebody brilliant who with a line and a dot tell, some webcomics or whatever, with a line and a dot, they tell whole stories with only those skills. So how do you as an artist develop who you are and that makes it so distinctive that when someone looks at your art, they're like, oh, that's Sean's work, or that's Megan's work, or that's Loryn's work. Sean, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think I know the answer.
Okay, good.
But
No.
yeah, no.
But the question was good. Let's just be clear.
Yes, no, it's a fantastic question.
You're welcome.
I'll take a stab at it. The thing I think I'm the most known for is probably cross hatching, which is kind of weird because it's a very time consuming. A lot of people think of it as kind of an old fashioned way of drawing things, and it really is. But it's fun for me when I'm looking at something to not just look at it. I mean, in order to draw, and anyone will tell you this who does this a lot, you really have to see, and you have to look very carefully and study something, understand all the different pieces, how the light hits it, whatever. And then one of the fun things about illustration is kind of like redesigning it. So anything you're looking at, what you're drawing on some level, you're redesigning it. Maurice Sendak is very big on that, and much more eloquent on this topic than I am. But I think kind of understanding how I like to redesign things, how I like things to look, and then sort of putting that into my work was a huge part of how I started developing more of a consistent way of drawing things. I guess that's maybe the best way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's what you feel reflects you as a person, kind of. It's just your voice, right? As a person, as an artist. Megan, how did you found your way through architecture, which is a very precise way of drawing. I would imagine you had to be very precise when you're doing low-bearing walls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How do you translate that to whimsical animals?
Well, you know what's so funny is when I wrote my first book, Big Mo, I had it for some reason at an airport checkpoint coming in through customs, and the customs officer said this and said, "You wrote this? Are you an architect?" Just by looking at the cover, I was like, "Oh man, is it that obvious?" I think there's something about the preciousness of white space that architects, kind of fetishize, and I'm the same way. But in contrast to the white space, I love characters that just feel like you want to hug them. Like something that talking about voice, I think. Over the years, I've realized that I want my stories to be kind of on the surface about something, and then on the deeper level to be something very relatable, personal to me, honestly, and then personal to a kid. And so I think to answer your question of how have I found my voice, I feel like I still haven't. I think it's an ongoing process. But illustration-wise, something that I found to be kind of a happy side effect of the pandemic and being home, for 2 years straight, essentially, was that I had more time to do just art for me, art for fun. And I started doing these like Instagram, I call them trifles, just like quick sketches, a couple hours a night. And then over those 2 years, I feel like I've really honed in on how I want to illustrate. So it, again, a happy side effect of something that's otherwise terrible.
You were giving yourself, it's as an artist, I feel like COVID was the best thing. I mean, in many ways it was horrible, but as an artist to get the space to not think about your art as commodity is such a privilege. And something that we probably wouldn't unplug to do unless we're forced by some kind of crisis, or which we all experience together. So I noticed that in myself, and I hear that a lot with artists. It's wonderful to hear that you were able to discover that about yourself too.
And Loryn was alluding to the day job, and that's part of it too. Is like to have those moments of peace that are just for you is very special, and day jobs allow for that. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. Loryn, I'd love to hear about your voice, but I also would love to have you combine that into a little bit about messaging too, because you have a lot of books that have really deeper messages on feminism and just personality and knowing yourself. Like you have a lot of layers, and all of you as well. How do you think about that when you make a book? Do you start with theme? Do you really set out, I'm going to change people's minds about gender, and then you come back into it? Or you're just like, I want to do a thing about a bear. Let's start with the bear.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll start with the first part and then go to the second part. I think finding your voice, I think you practice and learn all the techniques. And when you're younger, you like copy all these different styles. And eventually, I think my first few books, I would go crazy over every little line, like crazy, trying to make it into something I thought was perfect. And eventually, I had like a million different jobs. And I was so busy. And then I had BuzzFeed going on. I didn't have time to be so precious with everything. And that's when I started like letting go, like, this is how I draw humans. They look like jelly beans. Like, it doesn't, like, this isn't like, I don't like necessarily love my art, but this is how I draw. This is how it comes out of me. And I think it made my art a lot better in the long run. And people liked it more. It's more authentic. So I think like letting go and not overthinking it is actually a good thing for art. And then your like true style comes through, even if it's not that pretty, like
Yeah,
that's it.
Nobody else is doing it the way you do it, even if you don't like it.
There you go. And for messaging, you know, I think like everything, I feel like everything I've made that I've been proud of is I was looking for something that wasn't there. So, you know, I was looking for a baby shower present for a friend, and I was like, where's the gender studies for babies section? And they were like, that's not a thing. So I literally, you know, like I ran home and made Feminist Baby. I was so excited. So I think just like looking for what you want to see in the world that's not there and then creating it. One of my first articles at BuzzFeed was Disney princesses with realistic waistlines, which is something that had always bothered me as an artist. Like, and then, you know, it's like it became this whole thing. But I think, yeah, that's where I get my ideas from mostly. I mean, other than just like taking walks and
Yeah.
letting
Megan, how is your process when you come up with a new book or a new project? Do you is it all over the place, or is it just,
No.
do you have to wait for inspiration to strike and then you go?
I do a lot of nonfiction reading, and I always wait for the heaviest subject matter to hit me. I'm like, I say, I want that one. So like the first book, Big Mo, I remember I came across this, it was a Cree Indian proverb, and I don't remember all the lines of it, but effectively, you know, when all the trees are gone, when all the fish are killed, when, you know, all the waters are poisoned, only then will you realize you cannot eat money. And I thought, wow, that is so heavy. How can I write a book about that, about, you know, overconsumption? And how can I do it in a cute way? So it's about an iguana, you know? And so there's always something like that. It's usually inspired by a book. The one for that was called One with Nineveh, about, you know, Mesopotamia basically being stripped of all of its natural resources. The next book was about environmental threats in the oceans, but with, again, a kind of an emotional hook of this really cute little squid character who is based on a real type of squid that glows at night. And so there was a really cool symbolism just in this animal that I found in my research. And then ultimately, my latest book, Sudan, is about a rhino who was a real rhino. So again, just these topics, these heavy topics, in this case of extinction. I wanted to write about extinction without writing about extinction, because that's super sad.
Yeah.
But writing about the character Sudan, who was this ambassador for his species, seemed much more approachable as something that could be kind of a general emotional story. So yeah, and you know, they're always inspired by something I see in reality, I guess.
And something that well, when you talk about your work, I mean, this is, I guess, the ideal situation for all of us, that you have passion. You have passion and curiosity about something. And like Loryn said, I want to put in the world what I see that's not there. I want people to see the world like I see it, and it's not there yet, because you're the only person who sees it like that. So
yeah, you want to write a book that you want to read, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Sean, how do you feel? How do you incorporate deeper issues? But do you think about theme and those kind of more messaging under your work? And how do you approach putting it in there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really attracted to something that is kind of seems simple on the surface, and there is something a little bit more complicated under it. So, last book I actually put out is called This Very Tree, well, I was going to pick it up, but actually that light is on top of it. I should have thought that through. But
the L is on time, I can see.
Right, exactly. Yeah, for once.
It's a New York thing. I don't know. I've never lived there, but I'm gonna go like this. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm from Canarsie, so that makes it even funnier to me. It's about the calorie pear tree that was present at Ground Zero during 9/11, and the buildings fell down on it and it survived. And you know, when I was looking into this story, at first the editor that was working with, Christian Trimmer, he told me, hey, you know, we really want this to be from the tree's perspective. And I thought, that's a weird thing to, like, I don't know, man, like, this is a heavy subject. It seems a little trite to be like, oh, it's from the, you know, the tree is narrating it. Mm-hmm. And then I really kind of thought about it. It's like, wow, you know, trees, you know, they have bodies and limbs, you know, they get hurt, they have skin, you can kind of see their scars. And then I sat down and tried to write it and tried to write it. And about a month later, not having written it very much, I went to my wife, who's a clinical psychologist. And I said, imagine this tree was actually that came into your practice. And she specializes in trauma, among a couple of other things. And I said, what would it be like? Like, how would you talk to the tree? What would you expect it to say? And then what would sort of be its course for recovery? And so she sort of explained the whole thing to me. And that's sort of what became the book. It was like therapy notes or clinical notes on a tree that had experienced 9/11 and survived it. Now, a lot of people would go, how do you make a picture book out of that? I hope I did, but that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm interested in. Right now, I'm working on a book about iguanodons. I really like dinosaurs. I'm wearing a David Yost affirmative shirt here, but
Yeah.
that's about sort of how we keep on changing our ideas about how dinosaurs look. So taking a dinosaur like the iguanodon that we always have sort of a different view of, and then talking about kind of how that's a demonstration of how science is an iterative process.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, two things that I as you were talking, I will never forget reading in a book that when trees get cut down, they scream. There's like a high pitched frequency so I can't ever look at a tree being cut down without thinking of them screaming. And a dimetrodon is not a dinosaur. Did you know that?
No, it's a synapsid. It's actually closer to mammals.
I know, and I was reading a Berenstein Bears book, which they should get this right, and they included it in the dinosaurs. So I'm just glad you're out there correcting the world. Okay,
we're trying really hard. Yeah.
Just a couple more questions before we let you go, because I could literally talk to all of you for 18 years. I would like to talk. You talked about the fact that you were kind of stuck on this project. I would love to know, how long does a project have to gestate for you guys? Is it all different? Can you write a book in a week? Can you write it, and does it take years? I'm sure it varies, but like, do you have kind of a process that you go through that is consistent throughout your works? Loryn?
Yeah, it definitely varies. Most of the time I'm pretty lucky because I think of an idea and I get overexcited and then I do it way too fast, and usually it's like a mess and there are mistakes, but it happens, and then it's got to get kind of like worked up and I don't sleep and all of that. But every now and then, I had trouble after the third Feminist Baby. I really couldn't think of another book, and life was like super stressful at the time. And eventually I was just like, I need to make something. Like, it doesn't need to be the best idea. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just like make something. And that's when I just like buckled down, and I did Blanket in between some books, Journey to Extreme Coziness. And it's not like my favorite, but I probably shouldn't say it's not my favorite book ever made, but it's really cute, and I'm not like embarrassed by it. And but it took a lot longer, and because I wasn't like as worked up about it. So it's either like depends on the project.
Yeah. I think a lot when I talk to people, it's like sometimes somebody spends 8 years on one project, I love it, and then somebody's like, I did it in a weekend, and then it doesn't really proportionally represent how successful, or it just represents on how their process is. So, whatever.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of factors. Like, the first book I ever worked on took forever, in that, it didn't take forever to make it, but I was trying to get published and actually never got published. It was like 2 or 3 years of trying to get published, and it never got published. The next book took like 2 years. So, the creation part can be shorter or longer. And then the getting published part can be shorter or longer, or like really long.
Yeah. The publishing, we did that earlier. It could take years and years, especially for kids books. Sean, how is your process? Because you work on kids books, but you also work on graphic novels. That's a lot more work.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How does your process work in that? And what do you think timeline? Like, how do you manage that?
Well, first graphic novel I did took me about 8 years to write and 5 years to illustrate. Trying to avoid doing that a second time.
Yeah.
First picture book I illustrated took about 8 weeks. And then I've done things since then that have been anywhere between 2 years and 1 year. We're going to be publishing another graphic novel in about 2 years that we just got approval for Friday. I can't talk too much about it, but it's going to probably take me about 1.5 years to illustrate on and off. And it just kind of depends. The work I'm doing right now is the dinosaur book I mentioned, the Iguanodon's Horn. that will probably be like a 6-month project altogether.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Megan?
So you said the word gestation, and I thought, yep, because they take me 9 months.
Oh, wow. That's
almost like clockwork. So actually, I have the stack of my 3 here. So they're all 48 pages, and they're all the same size. Isn't that so architectural?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it doesn't actually matter for me whether it's, an illustration of a single character or an elaborate landscape. They all take forever. Like every drawing for me takes forever because I revise them so many times.
Mhm.
And then I've also had, depending on how you look at it, the benefit of not being with a publisher. I published my own books. And so those 9 months for me were like not only writing the book and illustrating it, but also publishing it and,
Yeah.
doing all those roles too. So, very full time in those cases. But I think just depending on the illustration medium, honestly, is how you can kind of cut your time down. Like my second book was watercolored, and that just quadrupled the time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's so beautiful, though.
Thank you.
All of you are so immensely talented. Let's just leave with one piece of advice you can give the audience about developing their work and their craft. Forget about the commercial. Like, what is one thing that you wish you knew when you started out that you would advise a younger self to incorporate in developing yourself as an artist? I'm sorry, that was way too profound. Just like give a piece of advice to artists who are aspiring to be published or just make a book.
Who's first? I
I'm
volunteer to
sorry.
go last.
I know I should. Okay,
I'll
you can
go-
go
I'll
last.
go first.
Lauren, go first. Lauren, go first.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I already said was, trying to make what you want to see in the world. But something else I always say is you need to enjoy the process. Like the outcome, the book coming out. I mean, for me personally, that's like the least. It's like a very stressful, and it's not necessarily that fun. Like it's nice when people like it and they say they do, but you need to enjoy like the drawing and writing and the getting there and the picture, because it's like that's your life. That's like your day-to-day life is making it. It's not when the book comes out. It's not after it comes out. It's more about what you're doing rather than the end result.
Great advice. Sean?
Yeah, probably finding the general and the specific. So looking at specific things and then seeing how they kind of, the universal and specific, people would say. And then a lot of openness, because you kind of never know where the next idea is going to come from, and being open to sort of getting an idea from anywhere.
Yeah, be an explorer of the world. If you're not exposed to different things, you're not going to be struck with inspiration. You can't. You have to get out of your bubble. Yeah. And Megan, last but never least, Megan.
So maybe not as profound, more practical, but keep a sketchbook with you at all times, whether you're an artist or just writing lines. Ideas come at the strangest moments, so you want to be sure that you get them down with your hand, not with your phone. That's how I work best, is by hand.
No, I totally hear you. And it's also they say that neurologically, when you handwrite, it's a different part of the brain than when you type.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's much better for creativity to use your handwriting and then later transfer it to a computer, because you are tapping into a different creative mindset.
Yeah, I buy that.
Yeah, I read it on a headline. I think it might have been BuzzFeed. Thanks, Lauren. So where can we find each of your work? Megan, we'll go backwards. Megan, where can people follow you and support your work?
Sure. So I can be followed on Instagram and Facebook at Padalecki Studio. And my books are available on my website, which is padaleckistudio.com. And the latest book, Sudan, the cool thing is if you purchase it through shopstands.com, a portion of the proceeds are going over to Olpaheta Conservancy in Kenya, which is growing new rhino embryos to replace Sudan's nearly extinct species.
Wow, that's amazing. Shop Stands, amazing company. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah,
Sean, where can everyone follow you and support your work?
On Twitter, Sean C. Rubin, C is in Charlie, Rubin, and then SeanRubin.com. And then Instagram is Sean C. Rubin as well. And all my stuff's available on bookshop.org, which is a great website to support.
That's who I usually, when I go to the larger Demon company, I always go, okay, I'll shop there, and then I'll actually purchase it at Booklist. Okay. And then Loryn, please, where can people follow you and support your work?
You can follow me everywhere on Instagram and Facebook mostly. I actually don't tweet very much, but it's all my name at LorynBrantz, Loryn Brantz.
Great. So thank you all so much for being here. It was a wonderful panel to end the day. I'm sure the Gishers are going to go off and do 10 million, get a lot of building on your hands, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, we do have a GISH item. Charlie, do you want to come in and help me send everyone off with this additional GISH item from the panel?
Sure. Hi. Yeah, so we wanted to make it really easy. I actually cut out a few words just to fit it into the graphic because it gets a little complex. Let me just
It was
pull
long.
Up
That's why I was like, I'm going to throw it to Charlie because there's a lot of words here.
Yeah, it was a little long. All right. So they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and no one knows that better than book illustrators Loryn Brantz, Megan Padalecki, and Sean C. Rubin. Get as many members of your team as you can to each create a children's book page with an illustration that communicates a complex concept in cute, kid-friendly ways in images. This is an illustration challenge, so you can't use more than 5 words on the page. Post your images in social media, tagging our panelists, Loryn, Sean, and Megan, Padalecki Studio on Instagram, with hashtag GISH and Book Bash, and submit all your original illustrations, not the screenshots, as one collage.
Yay! All right. Well, I guess we will see all of you tomorrow. We have a wonderful panel on joy and activism at 11 a.m. Pacific. So I hope to see all of you there. And we have a closing ceremony, and I'm going to wear a funny hat. I'll find it somewhere. Charlie, you got to wear one too, please.
Oh, what? Okay. Okay.
Just do it. All right. See you guys later. Thank you.